Hi, my name is Craig McIntosh, and I'm an economist in GPS. And I wanted to talk a little bit today about the BAMPP program that we've built as a union between the economics department and GPS. I think this is a really exciting new opportunity, and I think it opens up lots of great new learning avenues for students in the econ undergraduate program. A few words about myself. So I'm a development economist, so I work mostly on issues of what kinds of policies can be used to fight poverty and to make markets work better for people across the developing world. Let me talk a little bit about the BAMPP and what we see the opportunity being here. So simply put, from the student's perspective, the great thing about the BAMPP is it gives you a chance to get a master's degree, which would normally take 2 years after you finish your undergrad degree, in what is effectively 1 extra year. It's efficient, it's inexpensive, it's quick, it's a great way to be getting, a high quality master's degree and really acquiring all the skills of that master's, but doing it in a shorter time than it would take if you did the two back to back. And again, what we're really trying to do in the BAMPP program is to take students who have this very solid foundation in economics that they've gotten from the undergrad degree in econ, and then give them a chance to jump in with both feet to really working in a hands-on way with real policy questions and data from applied projects to try to give you those skills that you're going to need to be able to go out in the workforce, get an interesting job. Getting the master's degree obviously gives you a leg up on the job market relative to bachelor's. So it's important to say, GPS and the BAMPP, this is intended to be a professional degree. And so what that means is the goal of our training is to get you a really interesting job that starts you off in your career. So this is not intended to be a pre-PhD program. It is not, academic training for more academic study. It's intended to really be a terminal degree. This is the master's that you're going to get, and then you're able to take this and go out in the workforce. Graduates from this program, from the MPP program, are doing things like, working in DC with the State Department or with the Treasury Department, working as data analysts at places like the World Bank or IMF or IFPRI or the Inter-American Development Bank, and then working with a broad range of nonprofit and non-governmental actors who are really kind of out there on the ground doing the yeoman's work and actually, carrying the weight of moving social policy forward. So how do you do this? Well, there's a bunch of different ways you can do this, but the key is really going to be to focus on technical training, right? So you've taken, a good, solid, fundamental econometric sequence in the econ department, and then what the BAMPP will give you is a chance to apply those econometrics tools to lots of different policy programs. Let me talk in a little bit more detail about, what the courses that one would take in the BAMPP would be, and try to give a sense of kind of how exciting this curriculum is that we've put together. So the first thing I'll talk about is what you would be doing in the 4th year of your undergrad. So this is kind of like the first year of the master's program. So in that year, you would come over and you would start taking courses at GPS as a part of the BAMPP. So the 5 courses that would be in the core that would be a part of what you'd be taking in that year. The first one is called policymaking processes. So this is a very big picture course taught by political scientists that is basically, how does the sausage get made? How is policy made in practice? And, correspondingly, what are the inputs that can go into that to affect the policymaking process? The next one is a course on market failures and policy interventions. Is taught by faculty from the economics department, and the goal of it is to be an applied master's level course on basically the justification for regulation. Then we also have a faculty member from econ teaching a public finance and taxation course, which is going to be, again, an applied big picture course about what the policy issues are there. Then we have a course on policy analysis and decision theory. And that is being taught by a faculty member who's joint with Scripps. And so this is now bringing in some of the tools from climate science and energy planning, which are basically, what are the skills that you need to be able to put together predictive models and to be able to do high-level policy simulations with those structural models that let you figure out what the effect of different kinds of regulatory policies are going to be. Then we have a course on policy analysis and public welfare, and this is a course course that's particularly focused on this question of kind of how domestic policy in the United States is affecting inequality, is affecting different racial groups differently. And so it's really kind of giving you a sense of where the rubber hits the road in terms of the linkage between high-level policy and outcomes for citizens of the country. Now, as a part of the BAMPP, you're going to pick an area of specialization, and there are 6 of those. So what those 6 are American and comparative business regulations. So that's kind of the US focused one. Environmental policy, which is going to be focused heavily on energy markets, energy trading, and alternative power technologies. Health policy. So this is really focusing on the public policy pertaining to health interventions. Inequality and social policy, which is basically looking across not only the developed, but the developing world to think about the ways in which social policies drive inequality at the national and local level. Peace and security. So this is thinking about instability, civil wars, insurrections, violence. Where does national stability come from, and what are the policies that can be put in place to assist national stability? And then finally, the program design and evaluation track, which is basically focused on doing the technical training that would teach you how to do policy analysis in a really rigorous way and be able to write that up in a manner that drives the policymaking process. All right, so since I'm most directly involved in this track, I want to talk a little bit about the program design and evaluation concentration within the BAMPP. So each of the different concentrations, they have the same basic structure, that there's one required course, and then there are 2 electives that you're going to choose one of, and then there's a long list of electives that you're going to choose 3 from. So, it's relatively open, and it still gives you quite a bit of ability to configure what you're interested in and what you'd like to do. So let me just kind of quickly talk through what some of those courses look like to give you a sense of what it would be to pursue this track. So inside this program design and evaluation track, the required course is the course that I teach on panel data analysis, which is basically kind of working up through limited dependent variable analysis, through doing some time series and forecasting analysis, but then really focuses on the use of two-way fixed effects to do difference in difference policy analysis. What are the assumptions required? And then lots and lots of hands-on work with data to really get you comfortable with writing the code that it takes to do this kind of analysis. Then you'd be choosing from one of 2 different courses as your second track core. So one of those is a course called Evaluating Social Programs, and that's a very hands-on course, which is basically like, imagine that an organization actually tasks you with saying, hey, we're running this program, and we want you to go out there and figure out whether it's actually working to achieve the goals or not. So the whole suite of skills that go along with thinking about, who should you target to study? How should you sample them? What are the questions that you ask? How do you build a good survey? How do you come up with good counterfactuals? And then also, how do you actually write that analysis up? How do you put it together in a manner that's compelling to policymakers? So that's one of the courses. And then the other one is our course on GIS and spatial data analysis, which will basically give you a good initial training in all of the core skills of using ArcGIS, QGIS to be able to do spatial policy analysis. So then I'll just kind of quickly go through the elective list. So there's the capstone that I co-teach with Professor Jen Burney, a course called Evaluating Technological Innovation. And so what we're doing there is having students come in, define, whatever is the policy problem that they're interested in or the technology that they're interested in. And then we basically work with them in a very intensive hands-on way over the course of a 10-week quarter to try to put together a really solid, well-written, empirically well-done policy paper on the subject of their choice. So this is a really exciting opportunity to, work very closely with faculty members and to think very deeply about a topic that you're interested in and prepare what we hope will be an excellent writing sample that will be effective in getting you jobs. We've seen that happen again and again. There's the second course in the GIS sequence, which is Advanced GIS and Remote Sensing. There's a really great course taught by Gordon McCord, which is called Integrated Development Practice, that has you basically work with a real client, which is typically going to be some kind of UN agency, to put together a big picture policy study of a country. There's my course on designing field experiments, which will have you build up your own prospectus for how to go out and do a randomized trial. And then we've got a whole series of courses on big data analytics, cost-benefit analysis, making policy with data, and more. So, it gives you a general flavor of the kinds of things that we're trying to do here. This is a technical track. It is intended to train you to be as highly trained as we can possibly get master's students, so that you're really able to go out and make a real difference in the world and have the kinds of concrete, practical skills that employers are looking for and that allow you to step into that job and really make a difference because you're well trained and you understand, what to do with data and how to present it to drive the policy process. Inside the BAMPP, we have a number of different certificate programs that are allowing you to focus on different kinds of technical skills that are really demanded by the workforce right now. So we have a quantitative sequence that leads to a certificate, and that is basically pushing you as far as we can push you over the course of those 5 years in terms of being really sophisticated applied econometrician. We have a spatial certificate, and so that is teaching you the tools of ArcView and QGIS, all of the spatial analysis toolkit, how to think about the issues that arise, for example, with autocorrelation in spatial data, how to use remote sensing data and be able to integrate all of that together in a GIS framework. That's one of the most employable skills there is right now. And then we also have the Policy Design and Evaluation Lab certificate, which is focusing on a set of skills around survey design and sampling and how you actually go out and gather data on the ground to be able to be someone who's generating the information that's needed to do this kind of policy analysis. Furthermore, we have lots of area experts in GPS. So, whether you're interested in China or you're interested in Mexico or Brazil or Korea, we have lots of deep area expertise and the language training as well to go along with that. So, if you really have a passion for working in a specific country, it's an environment where you can really build your knowledge of that country and build the depth of expertise that's going to help you to get employed working in that country. I teach a number of different quantitative and development courses in GPS. So 2 of those are not relevant to folks who'd be taking the BAMPP. That's the course which is called QM3, which is the third course in the undergraduate econometrics sequence, which is panel data and kind of difference in difference policy analysis. And then I also teach our course in the Master's in International Affairs on economic development. And then the other course that I teach is a joint PhD and master's course on designing field experiments. So this is, again, a hands-on course. Students are asked to put together a prospectus over the course where they're really designing their own project, putting together something that looks like a grant proposal and is, a very concrete idea of how to go out in the world and test something real in a manner that would be very rigorous and internally credible. In terms of what I work on, most of the work that I do is randomized controlled trials. So I'm working very closely with some kind of implementer in the developing world who's out putting a project on the ground. They're doing a real thing with real people. And then, my goal is to work very closely together with them to help them figure out how to implement that project in a way that allows it to be measured. So, the randomized movement has kind of taken over applied economics in many, many ways. And this is really the gold standard of evidence. And so the work that I'm doing and the training that we're trying to give is really putting people at the forefront of that evidence revolution and really helping them, contribute not just as knowledgeable readers of that literature, but also as people who really have the skills to go out and do that kind of work. So, a few examples of things that I'm working on. I'm really interested in trying to understand how to make RCT evidence speak more clearly to policymakers. So one example of that is how do we accumulate evidence? So for example, I just finished a co-edited book that came out with Cambridge with a large group of political scientists where we ran a series of 7 different randomized trials giving information about politicians right before elections take place and trying to understand whether that changes the way people vote. Can you make people be more performance-based voters? And then what's interesting about this is that because we did similar things in lots of different places, that lets us accumulate the evidence in a really novel way. Similarly, I'm really interested in trying to understand how we can give policymakers good cost benefit evidence that lets them think about, what are the relative advantages of different kinds of programs and how can money be spent to most effectively alleviate poverty. So as a part of that agenda, I've run a number of so-called benchmarking studies that are comparing the effect of big, complicated, bundled programs of the type that USAID usually runs against what would happen if you just took the cost of this program and gave it to people in cash. So what's the comparative impact of those? I'm also really interested in how markets work and how markets are serving the poor. And so right now I'm just finishing up a very large project that we've been doing for the last 5 years in Uganda, which is bringing a high-tech grain trading platform and pushing this out to farmers and traders and trying to understand the ways in which having more access to information and more access to trading opportunities changes, who gets the gains from trade from these fundamental grain markets that provide most of the food that people eat and most of the income that people get in rural Africa. So that's a small sampling of the kinds of things that I'm working on. So hopefully this has given you a general sense of kind of the overview of what this program is for students who want to be doing applied work, who care about policy problems, and are wanting to get out into the workforce and work in this space, maybe fairly difficult to get a job doing this kind of thing with only an undergraduate bachelor's degree. And so we see the BAMPP as being really a great opportunity for that type of student to get this extra hands-on skills training, build up what you're going to need to go out and get a great job. And so we think it's a really good, exciting value proposition for students. And if you're interested, please check out our website, and you can find more information there on who you should contact in GPS and what the steps are to apply to the program.